Well, I certainly didn't intend this to turn into a hearing about marijuana, and there's no way I can take the time, or would I want to take the time to rebut a bunch of the misinformation that has been presented here tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone present from law enforcement against prohibition, which would be interesting to have happen at some point. I know Rick Van Wickler from the jail is a speaking member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and he and many other law enforcement professionals who are now retired have come out against not just marijuana prohibition, but the entirety of prohibition, even prohibition of all the bad drugs like, you know, meth and cocaine and things like that. So those guys would have some interesting statistics and information to combat what some of these people were claiming here. Teen users, of course, was brought up as a concern. And what we're talking about here is the Paraphernalia Ordinance that has to do with pipes and bongs, and as Ken Miola alluded to without getting specific, things like scales, I think, maybe some marijuana growing equipment and that sort of thing. Again, repealing this ordinance would not affect the illegality of the substances in question here. It would only affect whether or not somebody got an extra charge for having a pipe in their pocket when they also had some marijuana or something else in their other pocket. So that's really all that we're discussing here. And it is true, as the attorney pointed out, that the difference, one of the key differences between state statute and the city ordinance is that state statute does focus on the distribution of paraphernalia, whereas the local ordinance focuses on the possession of the paraphernalia. So we're talking about making life a little bit easier for the people who are regularly being arrested. I would like to invite everyone on this committee to come back to this very room. Probably, let's see, I think arraignment weeks are over. Tomorrow morning actually would be appropriate, or the following morning. The court here, district court, has arraignment weeks in the first 2 weeks of every month. And anytime you can come into an arraignment and sit and watch, you know, it's like an hour too long, probably more like 2 hour long process where people come in and, you know, they've been charged with something, and then they plead guilty or not guilty. They're given a court date, and that's it. I was at a hearing, and I've been to a bunch of these you know, as part of my activism, and every time it's person after person after person, young people mostly, young people coming up with some sort of drug charge or some sort of alcohol charge. I was in Hillsborough District Court the other day. There wasn't one person who came in front of that court who had been accused of harming another human being. Not one of them. There was alcohol, underage alcohol, there was you know, possession of marijuana. One lady, a lady in her 50s, long hair, kind of hippie lady, growing marijuana. She didn't hurt anybody, but yet she's facing 3 to 7 years in prison. So this would send a message that this council understands that the prohibition of marijuana is ridiculous, that putting people in prison or jail or threatening them with these things for having a personal issue, for maybe having a drug abuse problem. Again, not every user is an abuser, so keep that in mind. But when somebody has a drug abuse problem, it's bad enough, the effects of that. You know, they might be stealing from family members, they might be, you know, stealing from their workplace, who knows what they're doing. But putting them in a jail cell and then charging them hundreds of dollars on top of all of their other problems isn't going to make their lives better. The teenage users that were alluded to earlier would not have better lives if they were being fined and put in jail cells. Barack Obama and George W. Bush would not be better off today had they spent 10 years in a prison cell because of their youthful indiscretions as well. So keep that in mind. Then the claim about treatment for marijuana is just completely misinformation, just total misinformation. There are laws now that require people who are, young people especially, who are arrested for marijuana use to go to treatment. It's not that they need to go to treatment or that, you know, that it's necessary to go to treatment. It's that the law forces them to. So that's why more people are showing up at hospitals. They have to be there by court order. So again, please come to an arraignment and see the kind of people that this ordinance is affecting. These are your neighbors, these are your friends and your family members, and force is not a good way to solve these problems. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I appreciate you guys listening tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Okay.